Welcome to Favorite Books. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with James Quinn. James is an actor, writer, producer, and director. Be sure to check out his recent films, SANDMAN and The Consumer. So, James, welcome to wordauthors.org.
Well, hi, Lucia. Thanks for having me today.
Of course, I'm super happy to have you back. I interviewed you on the Relatable Voice podcast, and now I'm curious to know about your favorite books. But before we delve into your favorite books, I would like to learn more about you and your background.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you know, I'm an actor, producer, writer, director. But I've done a lot of other things in my life too. I worked in construction and safety, and we did a lot of different things. I used to play ice hockey a lot, so I worked for a lot of ice hockey arenas when I was younger. Um, so there's a lot of different things I think that have helped pave the way, along the road to trying to figure out where you finally want to be. But I love writing, I always have, love creating, just looking for new inspirations wherever I go. Just walking down the street and seeing something take place sometimes is enough to inspire you for your next story. And you never know what's going to happen. So I take each day and just try to learn from it. And that's basically who I am. I just like to create and like to tell stories.
Yes, I see that you've been doing a lot. And James, can you tell us about how you got started in this creative industry?
Yeah, I mean, I was always a big fan as a kid, and we talked on the podcast. I had mentioned how much I love Back to the Future. I
Mhm.
think that was probably the most inspiring moment for me in watching that take place. I was just engulfed in it and entrenched in everything that was happening with the film and the characters and the story, and just so much of it called out to me that shortly after that's really all I wanted to do. I wanted to act, I wanted to write, I wanted to tell stories that were, fantasy like and inspirational and just stuff that really captivated you the way I was captivated when I watched it. So took a lot of years. I started just doing background work on any project that would have me, and I did some commercials early on, which I still do.
Mhm.
And I just started getting my teeth cut in the independent film scene. I think is where I've really been able to make my name, and starting in Pittsburgh and then traveling all over the United States, and sometimes in entering other countries like Canada and the UK, working with people overseas has been a lot of fun, and getting our work done internationally. So I love how we're able to do that in network now. I think that's what's helped grow the independent actor over the last 10 to 12 years is social media. Online streaming has really changed and leveled the playing field to where you get a lot more notoriety than you used to in the past. And so I think that's opened a lot of doors for a lot of people. And I think that's kind of what inspired me even more, a decade to 15 years ago when I saw things starting to change and really that we could find more outlets. It didn't just have to happen in LA, and we could come to Pittsburgh or New York or California or Atlanta, Cleveland. It doesn't matter. There's so much happening in all these areas that you can't help but find your way into somewhere in one of the circles.
Mhm. And I understand that you are also a boxer yourself, and you played a role as a boxer in your movie Sandman. So, would you be willing to share something about yourself with your fans that they may not know about you? Like they don't have any idea that you used to do it or you're doing this.
Well, like you said, that was part of my past with boxing, and so I kind of meshed the two worlds together with cinema and boxing. What I used to do, but I still train and have a lot of fun with it. Something that people might not know about me is I'm a little bit of an old soul. I always have been. I'm really drawn to like the 1930s through the 1950s era. Big Elvis fan, big film noir fan. And I'm not overly quiet about it, but people that don't know me might not know that about me. I really love the old black and white cinema and how everything started, and it just really takes me to a greater place. And Humphrey Bogart, one of my favorite actors, and he did so much back in that era, and I'm just really engulfed in everything that took place there. I love that time frame. Who knows? Maybe I lived through that era once. I'm not sure, but it was a lot of fun to watch, and it just calls to me all the time. So yeah, I'd say they probably don't know just how old of a soul I can be.
Mm-hmm. I am also locked. I think I'm more in the 80s, I think. I keep listening to that songs. Also, the movies were great. James, how long it took you to write the script for your movie Sandman, for example? How is your writing process?
But yeah, it varies. It depends. With Sandman, in the case, that's always case sensitive to how inspired you are, right? With
Mhm.
Sandman, I probably tore my script apart a dozen to 15 times over the course of a year and started over. And I think probably because I was so close to it that I wanted it to be perfect, because a lot of what you see in the film actually happened in my own life. We put a few twists and bumps in there just for cinematic purposes, things that didn't happen. But about 85% of the movie is things that I went through in my own real life. So I wanted to be able to tell the story the proper way. And by doing so, I had to go back and relive it. And so we can be perfectionists as writers and as actors. And if we don't like what we're seeing, we'll tear it apart and go right back to the beginning. And so with Sandman, it was probably the course of a year before I actually got into production because I wasn't happy with it. Sometimes I could write a short film in a week. Sometimes I could write a feature film in a month. It just depends on how inspired you are at the time and what you are going on to tell that story.
But you start with the characters, or you need to have this story? Because for me, for example, I start always with the characters. I need to know how my characters look like and how they dress, how they think, their personalities. So how does it happen to you?
Uh, I agree completely. I always start with characters because I try to find a character that inspires me first. If I really find a character that's really fun or really dramatic or something that's calling to me about that character, then I want to try to put myself in that character's shoes and be like, what would this character really get into in a long story? And so sometimes it's comedy, sometimes it's drama, sometimes it's action. But I do like to develop characters first. I'm very character driven. I think once you have an idea of who your main characters are, then you can really start to tell a story. You get your beginning and you know what your end is. And it's all about just building the middle leading up to your climax.
Great. I had the impression that you started with the characters as well.
Yep. Oh yeah. Love characters. That's where I
Yeah,
think it's where it's at. Without the characters, you have nothing, right?
yeah, exactly. And I'm aware that you are an avid reader. So could you please share with us your top three books and why they hold a special place in your heart?
Yeah, I mean, I have so many that you like, so it's really hard to narrow things down and name them. But one for me as an actor is Michael Caine's book, Acting in Film. That's a book, excuse me, that he had written back in the 70s. And there's actually video, and you can find clips of it on YouTube that went with it. And what I really love about it is not only did he really get in depth and teach a wonderful class back then and write a great book, it all applies still today in the year 2023. Everything that he said then, and that doesn't always hold true, but with him, every word is actually something that you would find useful in today's art. And so I think that book tells a step by step on what you need to do as an actor, how you need to conduct yourself, the way you want to look at the camera, how you want to react, facial expressions, body language. Those are things that I'm key on. And I think after reading that book and watching the videos and seeing, and then actually working with them myself years back, I got to really see what an actor should be like. Even when you think you do, even when you've done a lot of work, until you see somebody like that teaching at their best, and you can only learn from that. That to me is something I'll read it over and over again. I've probably read it
Mhm.
30 times over the years just because there's so much information that you forget stuff and you want to go back and filter it back through your mind.
So it looks like it's a must-have book for any film actor.
100% recommend it. Apps. If you haven't read it, go check it out today. You could probably find it at Barnes and Noble and Half Price Books, Amazon. I'm sure they all have it.
And also Michael Caine is fantastic. Yeah, he's a
Wonderful.
monster.
Absolutely wonderful. And what you see on camera is who he is, though. He's a delightful human being. He's in
Yeah.
a very, very class act, a gentleman from start to finish. I was very privileged to get to work with him a few years ago, and that was very nice.
Wow, this is a privilege, really. And what is
Thank
the
you.
second book, the second one you chose?
So, in trying to find a little bit of range here, there's a book if you're in a bad way and you're going through what we call a season or a change in life. A book by a gentleman named James McDonald, and it's called When Life Gets Hard. And it's kind of just a step-by-step guide to help you when you're going through the worst season and the worst time of your life when you think you can't move forward. There's inspiration there. There's wisdom there. There's hope there, and it's really meant for somebody that just thinks they have nowhere left to go because they're completely down on their luck and they've hit rock bottom. And before you decided you hit rock bottom, that's one of the books I would recommend you go read. You know, because I think it'll help to re-inspire and show you that you actually can handle it. Even when you think you can't, that's probably when you're being tested your most, and that's when you really show who you are inside. And I think that book helps to make people realize that. And so that's one I've looked over a few times over the years, and I keep it in my collection because you never know when you might feel
Yeah.
a certain way and just need a little inspiration. So if you're looking for something for inspiration, I highly recommend it.
So it's more about spirituality.
It
Yes.
is, but there's a lot of unhopeful moments and times where it shows a man down at his worst. You know what I mean? And not thinking that there's anything left that he can do, and then it helps to lift you back up again. It's showing basically it shows how a spirit can be broken and then rebuild again. And I
Mhm.
think there's something very spiritual about that. You know,
Thank you for the tip. I'm going to
absolutely.
check out this book.
Oh,
And
I'm glad.
James, what is your third option?
Well, here's another one I'm a little close to because one of my favorite, if not favorite, writers is Lee Child. And then he wrote a book years back called One Shot. And One Shot was developed into a movie that's now known as Jack Reacher because the books are about the Jack Reacher character, the whole series of events. And so the book was actually turned into a movie in Pittsburgh. I got to work on it too. Said later, like I said, they just changed the name to Jack Reacher, but One Shot, I believe, takes place in Detroit, if memory serves anyway. And it's just over the course of events that take place in this day or so. It's just crazy nonstop action. And the way the man writes with his knowledge of military and military weapons and training and how one man could basically MacGyver his way out of any situation. You know, he's so detailed, man, that he has you from the beginning to the very end, to where even when it's over, you want more. Lee Child is an exceptional writer, and if you're action driven, you know, and you really love military and you have a military background, I think you'll enjoy his writing because a lot of
Mhm.
times people might write about military, but we're never there. And, you know, somebody that was in the military might say, hey, man, that's not right. I think you'll probably second guess Lee Child very little. Very few times will you second guess him and you'll go, wow, he really knows his stuff. And so that to me, he keeps my attention. When I'm looking for action and something high paced, I go to Lee Child. So look
Uh,
for One Shot. That's one of the best ones he has.
so it's like a manual for you.
Oh yeah, but they're all great. They really are. All of
Mhm.
his books are, but that one in particular was, yeah, that's one. It's a motivator. It's you know, it's kind of the Rocky of his time with his character Jack
Wonderful.
Reacher.
And I'm going to add to the remarks when we publish your interview all the books you chose. So many people will be able to check it out as
Oh, I
well.
hope so. That's great. Thank you.
Yes. And James, thank you for opening up and sharing a little bit about yourself with our audience. For those who would like to keep up with you, can you share with us your contacts, your socials, and how can we see your movies, of course?
No, absolutely. Thank you for asking. So all my social media, you can find me at Real James Quinn. That's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. So I'm on all of it, YouTube, and just interacting any way you want to with me. You can DM, you can tweet me. I do tweet a lot. And if I don't get back to you right away, I do my best to get back as soon as possible. I love interacting with fans and seeing what they like and what they don't like, and we learn together as creatives and as fans, right? And I think
Mhm.
if we can keep in touch and interact with one another, I think we only grow from there. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways we can. Social media has been great, like I said, in developing these relationships. But you can see my work on a lot of different streaming devices: Hulu, Prime Video, PureFlix. It's got a few things probably coming to Netflix soon. I don't want to say what yet and just spoil it, but Tubi. I have a handful of films on Tubi, and Tubi's a great resource because it's free. You can watch a lot of quality films on Tubi, and I do have a few of them on there, such as Checkmate and No Knock List, and a few more to come soon. So there's like a lot of different places you can check IMDb because even there's things that I forgot about that I know that IMDb has on there, and I go, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I did work on that.
Actually, I thought a lot about you online. Also, James is our cover star this month. on the magazine, The Relatable Voice. Please check him out. He's talking about acting and many other things. And James, thank you very much for your time, for coming to our show. And also, I would like to invite you to come back. You're always welcome here.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. I'll be happy to come back and thank you for the magazine and the interviews because the magazine turned out wonderful, folks. So if you get a chance to pick it up, I think you're going to love it. There's a lot of great things inside, including recipes that I'll be checking out soon.
Yes, keto recipes.
Thanks for having me, Lucy. It's been great.
Thank you, James. My pleasure.